Hello everyone, Sunderek here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what is potentially some of the backstories for some of the Fatui Harbingers. Now, of course, all the information for this video was recently made available, actually a little bit while back, by the release of the uh, Pale Flames artifact set along with 1.5. So after that, some of the previous story bits that were pieced into other lower sections of Genshin Impact, this set kind of put it together. Because if you take a look at the Pale Flame set, it is actually, even though it's a physical damage set, the lore-wise it is very focused on the Fatui. Before we get started, if you like the content, please consider subscribing. Thank you, and let's move on. So I'll be talking about 5 Fatui Harbinger here. Each artifact piece is kind of talking about one of them. 4 of them will be named here, which is pretty much certain which one they are talking about. However, one of them is still very not sure which Fatui Harbinger they're referring to, because for the Fatui Harbingers, it is kind of hard to figure out which one's which, because only half of them, less than half of them, have showed up either in-game or in lore somewhere yet. So the first one I'll be talking about is La Signora, and the information for her backstory will be coming from the Flower of Life within the Pale Flame set, which is the Stainless Bloom. Also, the entire Crimson Witch of Flames artifact set has also some bits. On top of that, the Chinese version of the Archon Quest Venti getting his noses taken out scene. The English translation, I believe, did not translate the part I want well enough, so I'll be referring to the original Chinese version. So her story began about 500 years ago, around when Kimra was almost destroyed, slightly before that. So there was a knight in MONDSTAT around that time. He's kind of a workaholic. However, whenever he has a break, he goes to the MONDSTAT Square, which is where the Venti statue is. He goes there to listen to a young lady sing, which calms him down. And these two eventually met in the end, even though they never really established some sort of romantic relationship. However, they were kind of huge fans of each other, to put it that way. So the man's name was Rustin, and he was the founder of the Famonius Bladework. And lore-wise, he is also the owner of both the Favonius Sword and the Elegy of the End, which correspondingly is the 4-star weapon from the gacha and the 5-star Venti's new bow, released in patch 1.4. So not long after they met, the young lady left to Sumeru to study, and however during this time, Cornea was destroyed by the Archons, which left all the monsters that was originally getting polluted by Cornea's alchemy was kind of left loose, and they were running around all the nations. So as a result, MONDSTAT was fighting some of these monsters that were running into MONDSTAT, and then Rustin was one of them that was doing that. However, he died during that battle. So sometime after that, the young lady returned to MONDSTAT, and that was when she learned of Rustin's death. So she got really angry and outraged, up to the point where her soul turned into flames, and she swears to she swears to burn down all evil with her she swears to burn down all evils in this world. So from this moment on, she became the Crimson Witch of Flames. However, eventually the flames got so out of control that the Crimson Witch herself can no longer control the flames. So she sought help from Snezhnaya, and the responder she got was the first Harbinger, the Jester, or his Italian name is Pedrino. I'm sure I'm pronouncing this wrong. So, and this guy, the Jester, made her a deal. So the Fatui would put out a fire within her body and turn it into, using the power of cryo, which turns her into almost ice. And as payback, she will be serving the Theresa under all conditions, and will be together with the Theresa and the Harbingers to challenge Celestia, or in case the original translation was to challenge the gods, which in this case is directed towards Celestia, because the Theresa is an Archon herself. So this is the primary clue we have on why this is La Signora. Now, of course, you can put out the argument that this does not necessarily point everything at La Signora because she might not be the only female Fatui Harbinger. However, I do have a few clues afterwards that kind of more eliminates it towards La Signora. However, one more thing to talk about. The reason why this works with La Signora is because even though we saw her using cryo during the Venti's cutscene to take Venti's gnosis out, however, that is already confirmed to be her delusion. Her vision is still unrevealed, so if this is true, turns out, it is very unlikely that she has a pyro vision and a cryo delusion. So regarding a few more points that I'm going to make, which why I think La Signora is this person. So during the Venti cutscene where Venti's gnosis was getting taken out, La Signora's English open line was "At last, MONDSTAT's rodent, ruler in the flesh, scurrying through the streets looking for leftovers." MONDSTAT calls this a god. However, the Chinese translation, the original Chinese version, the translated version of the Chinese version makes more sense here. In that version, La Signora's line is closer to "the rodent from home finally appeared in flesh." So the reason I'm using the Chinese version is specifically because La Signora mentioned "from home." Now, this could very likely mean she is referring to MONDSTAT at home, which means in this case, La Signora is talking about herself from MONDSTAT, which is why that kind of links her to this character, the Crimson Witch of Flames. Now, one more thing to note here is La Signora is, even though Child did most of the work in Liyue, La Signora is the one who took the gnosis in the end from both Zhongli and Venti. Now you can see how different she reacted towards the two archons. For Zhongli, she was much more civilized, whereas for Venti, she kinda just went and yanked it out. Now, of course, you can argue that for Zhongli, La Signora did not want to suffer the wrath of the rock. However, I believe the more reasonable explanation here is La Signora still holds a huge grudge against Venti because the Archons launched the war against Conria, and in the Anemo Archon's case, that caused the monsters to flee to MONDSTAT, which indirectly caused Runston's death. So, which is why I believe La Signora still holds a huge grudge against Venti for that, and that's why when she got a chance to yank it out of Venti, she kinda did it forcefully. Whereas in Zhongli's case, she does not really have anything against Zhongli personally, so it was just doing business there. Now moving on to the second one, which is the doctor or the professor. The Italian name I believe is doctor. I don't know how to pronounce it. So it is the professor or the doctor if you're looking for the corresponding English translation. And then the piece of artifact his story is written in is the Plume of Death, which convincingly, conveniently in this case is called Wise Doctor's Pinion, which makes sense here. So the story with him is about that he was a boy when he was still a little boy when he was studying in Sumeru under the group of elite scholars. However, he was different from everyone else that studied there. So in his opinion, that human is just a very complex machine, which means that if needed, he can take apart the machine, add more advanced bits, then take out the bits that doesn't need, and then this in turn will upgrade the machine. Now, these new upgraded humans should have the capabilities that outpowers any normal human in all areas. So when he proposed this idea, the scholars thought he was kind of crazy and on top of that very dangerous, so they just expelled him from Sumeru. Now again, the Jester, which is the first Fatui Harbinger or number 1 of the Fatui Harbinger, came in and found him. So he made a deal with him that the Fatui would fund his experiments, support all of his expenses that has to do with these experiments, and in return he would contribute all these technological discoveries that he had to the Fatui, and the boy in this case, which is the doctor, agreed. So the doctor also mentioned to the Jester that, if he has enough time and enough funding, not just upgraded humans, he can even make gods and archons, which he will eventually be able to produce given enough time and funding. Now, the Doctor has only appeared so far in the manga, but however, also slightly warning here, the rest of this bit is going to be kind of not very pleasing to listen to, because the Doctor has done a lot of stuff that is considered inhumane, so if you don't want to, you can skip this part. But for the next bit, I'll be kind of briefly explaining what he has done in the Fatui within of what we know from the manga. So the Doctor's only appearance so far has been the manga, and he has only appeared twice. However, that has already left most of us who has watched manga with a deep understanding of what he does. He is basically a psychopath that has no regards for human lives whatsoever. He constantly experiments on humans, most of the time kids, and then in the manga, he turned his former secretary into a ruin guard / human hybrid after his death, and then he also controlled the dragon, which kinda plagued MONDSTAT for 1,000 years, to kill Diluc's father. And after Diluc's father died, the Doctor killed the dragon. So then from MONDSTAT's side, they cannot really confirm that the Doctor controlled the dragon to kill Diluc's father. So in that case, it looks like the MONDSTAT is actually in debt to the Fatui to having the Doctor kill the dragon for MONDSTAT. He is also the one behind the use and construction of delusions, as well as what he calls human man-made archons. Now, man-made archons is, of course, we already know what delusion is already. It is similar to a vision. It's a counterfeit vision. However, the problem was if it backfires, it could cause insane body drain, or in Diluc's father's case, a non-vision user after using it can directly cause death. Now, regarding human-made archons, they are not exactly what the Abyss were doing during the Archon Quest will be reunited. It does not involve using the filter and Osiris body. However, what he was trying to do, the Doctor is trying to inject malice from previous gods and archons who lost the Archon War into human body to boost human strength up to the point where a human would have a power level of an archon. Now, currently, the only somewhat successful example was Amber's friend, who I can't really find the name in English, but Amber has a green-haired friend who had unfortunately gone through this and was eventually able to surpass the malice inside her body. She is currently studying under Sumeru. However, the person who helped her surpass it did mention that if it leaks again, even that person won't be able to suppress it. So we can see how some sort of stuff he does. Basically, he treats humans like machines again and has no regards for their lives whatsoever. Now, the other three Fatui Harbingers, again, one of them we're very certain about, one of them we're somewhat certain about, and one of them we have no idea what which one they're talking about. So, however, one thing to note is that we do know they're not talking about Child or Scaramouche, because none of them fits their description here. So the cup, which is the surpassing cup, is likely talking about the Puppeteer, or the Italian name is Sandrum. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong again. So the cup mentions a man with a very beautiful face and a rather long lifetime and a rather empty soul. Now, I'm sure I'm getting the translation here not very close, but the original translation, all these are used as if they are describing an object and not a human. So it further goes on to mention that it is likely to be created by an archon or a god, and it is recently waking up from a long shutdown or hibernation or sleep. So it is like a computer. So he is likely either a robot or a puppet, or in extreme case, he is probably similar to Albedo, a man-made man. And he is likely to be the puppeteer of the Fatui Harbinger. duty-wise, he is likely to be in charge of the gathering information specifically from the Adventurers Guild. Now, if you aren't aware, the Adventurers Guild headquarters is actually in Snezhnaya, which makes the organization somewhat suspicious, more as a gathering, more as an organization probably for gathering intels. And also, if you aren't aware, Catherine is most likely a robot or some sort of AI. If you stand next to her long enough, you'll hear her say either error, or I believe the other one is rebooting. And both of those are said with a very robotic voice, very different from her normal voice. So that is the Puppeteer. Next, the sands or the hourglass, or in this case, the moment of cessation, is talking about. This is the one we're not certain which one they are talking about. So the sands mentions a very young boy who is very poor, who later developed a somewhat twisted view towards money and wealth. So this person is likely the Fatui Harbinger behind the financial parts of Snezhnaya, and he is likely to be the one managing the Northland Bank in Liyue. Now, if you talk to the manager at the Northland Bank, he does mention a person he is serving. It is most likely that person. Now, the reason they are very fond of the Northland Bank is that ever since Zhongli gave away his gnosis, Morax no longer has the ability to produce Mora, because that ability is tied with his gnosis, not with himself. So technically right now, if the Fatui wants to, or if Snezhnaya wants to, they can completely overtake Liyue as the new center of economy or wealth or trading within within Tibet, and they're probably planning on doing that, which is why the Northland Bank is kind of a big deal, and there's a Harbinger behind that organization. Now lastly, let's move on to the circuit. The circuit is talking about the circuit, or in this case, the mocking mask is talking about the number one of the Fatui Harbingers, the Jester himself, or if you use his Italian name, Pedrolino. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong again. So Pedrolino, or the Jester, is actually originally from Conria, same origin as Dainsleeve, Abyss Herald, the entire Abyss Order, and Kaya. So he was originally also an alchemist of sorts, and he was competing with the alchemist that led to the kingdom's destruction from overdoing alchemy in the and going in the wrong direction. However, luckily for him and unluckily for the country, the king did not really got impressed by his talent, so as a result the king picked the other alchemist instead, and then that one led to the kingdom's destruction. The Jester was originally very loyal to Conria. However, after the destruction of Conria, again he blamed it on the gods. So he puts on his mask, nicknamed himself Jester, and he became the first Fatui Harbinger. I assume that Teresa probably kinda talked to him about her plans, grand plans, and he agreed with it. That's why he decided to join the Fatui. So a few more notes on the Fatui in general. I believe apart from Child, who is clearly just, somewhat of a playboy who got recruited into a Fatui and became a Harbinger because of his power level. Apart from Child, all the other 10 Fatui Harbingers might share the same sort of fate or early childhood, so they probably all had some very rough early childhood or early years at least. In La Signora's case, she lost someone she admired / loved, and in the Doctor's case, he was kind of treated as a different pair, as like a almost entire different species towards by the people at Sumeru because of his plans and somewhat outrageous thoughts. And for the person that was talked about in the sands, that person was very poor when they were growing up. So all the Fatui Harbingers might have some sort of hardship in their early lives or childhood, and then that led them all onto the road of rebellion, which is why they all united under the Teresa to overthrow Celestia. Now, I believe these people have all kind of got into the role of being rebellious even before they became Harbingers. So which is why it makes sense that these group of people, even though from Child and from La Signora and from Scaramouche we heard how much they hate each of the other Harbingers, and they're still able to work together under this organization for the bigger common goal. Now that is all the information I have for you today. I believe this reveals some information, not a lot, except for the Doctor and La Signora. This does receive some, explore some information on the other five of the Fatui Harbingers that we had not talked about. Now, of course, Scaramouche and Doctor are both supposed to show up during Inazuma, so hopefully we'll get more information about them as the time gets closer. That is all the information I have for you today. If you like the content, please consider subscribing. Thank you and have a nice day.